I'm your chairperson for tonight's lecture series. My name is Robin Paris. I'm Territorial Development Officer from West Indies Cricket. I'm also a former cricketer and footballer, etc. I'm now into administration. At this point, I just want to thank our sponsors who made this possible. Just want to acknowledge the Barbados Tourism Authority and Historical Society, University of the West Indies, Department of History and Philosophy, and the National Cultural Foundation. Tonight, our speaker, Mr. Trevor Marshall, definitely needs no introduction, and he asked me, please do not read out all of his bio. So I will read a bit of it. Trevor Marshall recently retired as head of the Department of History of the Barbados Community College. He also lectured part-time at the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill from 1973 in the Department of History and the Aerobar Center for Creative Imagination. He was educated at the Lodge School, the UWI Mona campus, Cave Hill campuses, and Waterloo University, Ontario, Canada. Mr. Marshall is also the author of a number of books on heritage and culture of Barbados and the wider Caribbean. He is co-author and the pioneering compilation Folk Songs of Barbados, and has also researched and written several articles for publication in scholarly journals in the Caribbean and outside of the region, subjects such as folk music, Barbados heritage, calypso festivals, the Barbadian peasantry, Caribbean cricket, the struggles of Caribbean women, the South African liberation struggle, and post-colonial Barbados society. Mr. Marshall is also a trained musician, has served Barbados as the first chief judge in the Pickety Crop competition at Cropover in the 1980s. He also judges regional calypso competitions in Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago. He has worked as a historian and a consultant to the Prime Minister's office from 2004 to 2008. Mr. Marshall worked with the Prime Minister's office as a consultant to the National Cultural Foundation, the Commission of Pan-African Affairs, and the Community Independence Celebration Secretariat. He is the recipient of 2 awards in the names of national heroes, the Errol Walton Barrow Award in his native St. John, and Clement Payne Award. Mr. Marshall has also been the chief announcer for the senior athletics meet since 2001 and for international meet since 1984. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to Mr. Trevor Marshall.
Thank you very much, Robin, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the club. The next speaker is the mighty Cricket in the Jungle. I know that's my joke. Yes, thank you very much first of all, for the museum and UWI for inviting me to be part of this lecture series, and for doing this topic, which I initially looked at. I talked about cricket in the schools from post-emancipation until in 1966. But then I did it without reference to the established topic, and I see that they had me going from 1910 to 2010. Alrighty, so just some adjustment made, and we begin by establishing that cricket, when you're looking at the topic of cricket in the schools, it's not a tale told by an idiot full of song and fury, signifying nothing. It's a tale of 3 schools in the main: Harrison College, Combermere, and the best of them all, the Lodge School. I make no bones about that. Right. We know that from documentation that cricket was brought here along with rugby, horse polo, soccer, lawn tennis, etc., by the British regiments at the garrison. But the prime sport brought by the soldiers and sailors of the British regiments and Navy here was cricket. The elite game of wickets, bat and ball, whatever you have. And although we see that in 1806, one of our newspapers tells us about a match between the garrison, the men of the garrison, and a merchant grouping, it is at law school, remarkably, that the game develops. I won't spend a lot of time on it, but just want to trace the background up to 1910. Law school can be seen as the catalyst which led to widespread organized cricket competition in Barbados. Our school is 12 miles away in St. John, and it became one of the most important nurseries, cricket nurseries in the world. We say this without fear of contradiction, because around this time, there was Woolmer School, and we're talking about, let's say, about 1820, when we see law school being established in the documentation as a place where cricket was organized and as a club for playing cricket. That's the 1820s. Woolmer's in Jamaica established 1819. Kingston College established before that. Jamaica College. They began to play cricket after 1850. Queen's Royal College in Trinidad, established 1856, began to play. The Warners, Pelham Warner, etc., played in the 1860s. Queen's College in Guyana, also established after emancipation, played cricket in the 1860s, etc. Harrison College, the great Harrison College, established 1733, began to play organized cricket from 1863. Law school played cricket. There was cricket being played at law school from the 1820s. From the 1820s. You get the situation of large boys playing cricket against Codrington College's theologues. As for Combermere School, the Boys Central School, renamed after 1878 in the name of Lord Combermere, their entry to cricket is 2 decades later, 1900, at the same time that the cadets at these 3 schools were formed. So Lodge, established in 1745 as a residential school for Barbadian whites, achieved first grade status as a result of the Education Act of 1878. Thereafter, it catered, like Harrison College, to the sons of the richest families in the island because of its boarding facilities. And it also attracted several sons of planters from neighboring colonies. The school, therefore, had a hand in the development of cricket in Guyana. May I say that M.C. Fredericks, who captained the West Indies team, attended law school in the 1940s. Patrick Frost was there at that time, early 1940s, although he was born. That's for putting me in detention. Right. I had to get back that some time. Right? Okay. Other members of other scions of elite families in the Caribbean attended the law school. We know right down to the time of Hugh Gore from Antigua playing for the Leeward and a candidate for the West Indies team. Many others, but I will not digress for the moment. So Lodge School is the oldest of all the extant cricket clubs in the island. Harrison College played in 1873. Wanderers was not established until 1877. And these are the only clubs which survived from that period. The only other one, Codrington College, no longer plays cricket. St. Anne's went defunct in the 1950s. Right. Bruce Hamilton, and he is the doyen of cricket writers in Barbados, he argues that if the British soldiers who occupied the garrison can be regarded as the missionaries who brought the sport to the colony, then the law school masters and boys can be seen as the real pioneers of cricket in this island. And even more remarkable is the fact that law school up to 1910, from which point we begin to look at the topic, had 56 students. Carson College had about 150. Combermere School, 120. Right. And largest small populace, therefore, holds a remarkable position, a pinnacle position in the development of cricket. And that is partly because of the insistence by a number of teachers and headmasters. Preeminent among whom is O.D.C. Antage, Bill Antage, who was headmaster of law school for 31 years, first 31 years of the 20th century. He, like Burton at Combermere and Dighton at Harrison College, established the concept of muscular Christianity, right? And that is a point brought out in many of the writings of Keith Sandiford. They were trying to emulate Matthew Arnold at Rugby School in England, and developing the notion that you cannot have a sanum corpus sanum, a mens sano, unless you have a corpus sano. So the notion, a healthy mind and a healthy body, mens sana and corpore sano, developed from that time. The notion driving these headmasters in that period, the early 20th century, is that young men have a great amount of nervous energy, as Mr. Frost will tell you that I had, and if you don't channel it in the right direction, they will become candidates at the prisons and will live a life like that of Jesse James and Billy the Kid. So the idea is to use cricket as an antidote to internecine strife and to develop wasted lives. And this, of course, is before the First World War. First World War gave them objects at whom to shoot and to whose destruction to plan. So you see that when we come then to 1910, the three schools are established as first division, as cricket playing schools. And let's set the context. By 1892, Barbados has BCA, a cricketing organization channeling all the energies of people in Wanderers Club, in Pickwick Club, St. Anne's Garrison, and not yet Empire. Empire is founded in 1914, and as a result of the class discrimination at the time, right? But the schools, Harrison College and Law School, were inducted into the playing of first division cricket from that time, right? The 1870s and 1880s, they were formally. When the BCA settled in 1892, they are members. Combermere does not become a part of the BCA until the 1920s, 1929. They played second division cricket for quite a long time, right? And the cricketing period, or the cricketing prowess of schools, therefore, is a tale of two cities, or two schools, Harrison College and Law School. In the early period that we're looking at, 1910, Harrison Law School holds the sway. Tonight I'm going to mention names, but I will use a broad brush because there are 400 names of cricketers in Barbados that you must mention of cricketers, from Goodman down to Shamar Brooks from these schools. And not even Shamar Brooks, he's a law school boy, but all the others who play cricket for law school, for the island. 400 persons. We cannot mention them. But the Goodmans attended law school. Percy Goodman and his brothers, and at one point they played cricket, 3 of them played for the island. When Slade Lucas's team came to Barbados in 1895, the first official tour of an England team in Barbados, the Goodman brothers played for Barbados, establishing the situation or tradition of schoolboys playing for this island long before they had reached 18 or had reached the time of manhood, which was 21. Names which followed them would be those of J.D., John Douglas Claude Goddard, Derek Seeley, playing for the West Indies, the youngest ever to play for the West Indies, age 17. Clyde Walcott, playing for Harrison College, First Division at age 12. And the list goes on. Patrick Frost would remember in the 1950s, A.C. Mears, playing against the Australia team of 1955 at age 17. He would also remember playing against Robin Bino, who played for the West Indies at age 18. All right? And the list goes on, Stephen Farmer, Jeffrey Greenidge, etc. There is a long tradition. Right. So the tradition is preeminent in that particular period. And let us look at law school. Law school does not have a great amount of persons there, as we have said. The school broadened or deepened, and it's indeed when I went to school at Lodge, yes, I did go to school there, in the 1958 to 67. When I left, the school had, I think, 450 boys. It now has a gargantuan number of 1,100 boys and girls. Law school exemplifies the fact that cricket established itself as a main form of Barbadian recreation in that period. Scholars are still wondering why cricket and not soccer, why not any other sport, track and field, as in Jamaica, soccer, as in Trinidad and British Guyana and Jamaica. I don't know if it has anything to do with the fact that elite persons, elite Barbadians, scions or sons of the planter class, were the first to play the cricket. And people in Barbados admired graceful batsmanship. There was a fetish, there still is a fetish in Barbados about style, about Carl Hooper, Ty Worrell, Seymour Nurse, all right, people who exemplify all that is graceful in cricket, and of course the exemplar of them all, Gary Sobers. But persons in Barbados went to cricket games to see stylish batsmen. And one of the first of these, H.B.G. Austin. Austin, like a number of others, attended Lord School. He went to Lord School and thereafter attended or established or helped to establish Wanderers Club. He could look at Barbados cricket and say, this is the house that I built. Because H.B.G. Austin was captain, coach, administrator, president of the Barbados Cricket Association, led the first West Indies team to England in 28, and picked the team almost by himself, right? And he was a law school boy. The Goodmans, as I said, attended there, and for the first 20 years of the 20th century, 1900 to 1920, it was all Lord School. Yes, Harrison College played cricket. Yes, the teams played against each other. Yes, they played against Combermere, but it is Lord School which had the sway, which carried the sway. Great fast bowlers. Goodman himself was an excellent all-rounder. And the only person who really challenged Lord School dominance was George Challoner, who went to the other place, Harrison College. Right. But Lord School had Tim Tarleton, who established a strong relationship with Challoner. The two of them were the leaders, the opening batsmen. They were the Greenidge and Haynes of the early 1900s. They played cricket, and people would ooh and ah. People would rhapsodize about how these people, these two men played cricket. And we must switch back for a moment to 1865, the first ever intercolonial game, Barbados versus Demerara, or British Guyana, was played here, and Barbados had a team which included 4 large boys: Ernest King, Richard Paris, Lyle Speed, and Augustus Smith. I don't know if Patrick knew any of those, especially the one named Smith. Right. With a name like Smith, you must know him, right, Patrick? Then, law school produced, in addition to those, W.A. Farmer. Farmer, he went to school in the early years of the 20th century, and from 1907 to 1911, he was the dominant force in athletics. He set a long jump record at law school, only eclipsed by Colin Blades some 60 years later. First Barbadian schoolboy to jump 20 feet, quarter mile champion, etc., etc. But his name is significant more so in cricket. He played a key role in many of the triumphs established by the school between 1907 and 1926, because he became, after his school days ended, he became a teacher at the school and ultimately became headmaster of the school. And he was the father of Wilfred Farmer, who became Commissioner of Police, another large boy, and the grandfather of Stephen Farmer, also representing Barbados. Apart from Farmer, the law school produced that the T.W. Allen, Tom Allen, Boyart, Deere, Emtage, C.W.F. Laurie, Barbados scholar, Joseph Phillips, Graffy Pilgrim, Skeet. These people played for Barbados. And it goes without saying, almost entirely, whenever I mention a name, that person played for Barbados. All right? And some of them went on to Oxford University, etc. You had persons such as Bernard Emtage Phillips and Skeet representing Barbados up to 1929. They went on to England and have represented the universities there. Right? As we said, law school was admitted to the first division of cricket and remained there until the war years, demoted, and then brought back in the 1920s. And brought back into cricket because of the exploits of Graffy Pilgrim, a lanky, medium, fast, right-hand fast bowler, swung the ball both ways. And he, in the 1920s, dominated cricket. He played for Barbados on 4 occasions during the period. And he taught at law school after his school days. And when Trinidad came to Barbados, he bowled them out, capturing 5 wickets for 5 wickets for 15 runs in 21 overs, right? And winning many battles for Barbados. Pilgrim then represented Spartan, and he went on to teach and coach students at Combermere. And he taught maths at Combermere until 1950. And I suspect that on this occasion, I'm not joking, Patrick Frost would have known about Graffy Pilgrim, right? Right. And he had a great deal to do with persons who emerged from Combermere, such as George Carew, who played for the West Indies, C.O.B. Crick, the 2 Lucases, N.S. Bricky Lucas, Manny Martindale, who played for the West Indies, J.E. Derek Seeley, Pampy Spooner, Fluffy Thomas, E.A.V. Fuffy Williams, and of course, Ty Worrell, Frank Worrell. Graffy always regarded Worrell as a special protege, and he was the first to predict that Worrell would reach exceptional heights as a batsman, even when playing for Combermere as a left-arm spin bowler. But perhaps the greatest incentive to law school's dominance lay in the two persons, and both of whom I knew. L.A. Bessie Walcott, who was good enough to play for the West Indies in the 1930s and went to law school, games master, 1932, served until 1947, remained on the staff until 1953, and when I reached here in 1958, he was still there and coached us in the 5th 11. Right. Himself, he argued that he was responsible for promoting a young man called Samuel A. Headley. Sam Headley, first black head boy at large, good enough as an off-spin bowler to play for Barbados courts and almost represented Barbados in 1946, right? And then Bessie Walker himself went to Combermere School. The other person, believe it or not, Patrick, was A.R.V. Newsom. A.R.V., Arthur Vernon Newsom, who we knew as a bird, and knew more as a person with a terrible late cut on your backside, right, as headmaster. He was apparently a very good stroke player, and medium bowler. And from the 1930s when he went to law school, he coached generations of law school. Both he and Walcott coached gifted players such as Wilfred Farmer, Michael Frederick, who I spoke of earlier, John Derek Goddard, Ken Goddard, Roy Marshall, Tony Skinner, Charlie Taylor, Rupert Wood, all of whom played for Barbados. Douglas Claude Goddard, as you know, led the West Indies in 1950 in the famous Calypso cricket tour. They gave the crowd plenty fun, second test, and West Indies won, right? Yardley tried his best, but Goddard won the test, right? Charlie Taylor, father of Alfred Taylor, both played for Barbados. Alfred, one of the greatest wicket keepers produced in Barbados, right? And Walcott also coached Herbert Lawrence Johnson, Laurie Johnson, Sam Headley, Torrey Pilgrim, and Norman Marshall, right? These are persons who helped law school to maintain a dominant position in schools cricket, right? To stay with law school for the moment, their cricketer of the 1930s was John Claude Douglas Goddard, sprinter, footballer, thrower of the cricket ball. When only 17, he was selected to both the Barbadian cricket and football teams. Right? He was one of the first, I think the first ever schoolboy to score a double century against another first division team. 200 against St. Anne's. Of course, he was followed by A. St. E. Tony King of Harrison College before he left school in the 1950s, and Stephen Farmer became the third. I don't know if any other schoolboy has scored double centuries in Barbados cricket against their elders. I'm sure he couldn't have scored it against Charlie Griffith. Charlie Griffith did not like any schoolboy to hit him for 4. And the response would be, 4 consecutive bouncers, each more vicious than the other. Right? Goddard, as we know, we will not guile the lily. Goddard had an outstanding record for Barbados, was recruited to the captaincy in the days when only whites could captain the West Indies team. After 1948, George Headley was overlooked, led the West Indies to England in 1950, and played against other teams. His last exploits leading the West Indies to a debacle in 1957 against England, right? So A number of other persons played for law school, and we see here law school teams: Skinner, Shan, Webster, Farmer, Mr. Walcott, Bourne, John Goddard, Mr. A.R.V. Newsom, Austin, and Packer. All strong names in Barbados. And then when we come to the 1940s, D. Evelyn, Mendez, Tudor, Sam Headley, Torrey Pilgrim, L.L. Critchlow, J. Hudson, Peter Short, who was CEO, President of the West Indies Cricket Board of Control, Michael Frederick, who captained the West Indies, H. Laurie Johnson, and Messiah. So law school, therefore, had a very strong substratum of young cricketers who by age 17 could match any cricketers in the world, right? John Goddard playing for Barbados from that age, right? I mentioned the Goodmans earlier. Laurie Johnson, Roy Marshall playing for Barbados along with his brother Norman Marshall in the 1940s, right? You had in the 1940s also B.K. Bowen, Cave, Frederick Patterson. Frederick reached status playing for Barbados, Jamaica, and Derbyshire, and played for the West Indies. Keith Bowen played so many different sports. Right? And to leave law school, let me leave law school in the 1950s. Here we see a 1956 team, and A.D.V. Brown, Hadley from St. Vincent, Mr. E.W. Glasgow, Earl Glasgow, who died last year. C.P. Brathwaite, seated. Arthur Bethel, who played for West Barbados. Juan P.D. Frost. O.W. Jordan, who died last year. Oscar Wendell Jordan, one of the best schoolboy cricketers I've ever seen. T. Trevor Mears. David Simmons, yes, Sir David Simmons. And W.A.L. Cozier, yes, Tony Cozier. All those played cricket for Lord School with some distinction. So we leave Lord School and go on to Harrison College. Harrison College benefited from that supreme educator, Horace Dighton. And there is a house in Harrison College named after him, right? He was headmaster from 1872 to 1905, the longest period any person has been headmaster in this island. Note carefully, Dr. Brown. Right? You have a long way to catch up, right? Dighton was one of those who believed that there could no possibility of a strong mind and feeble body. He played a leading role in the establishment of the Barbados Cricket Challenge Club in the 1890s, and he attempted to transform Harrison College into a replica of the English public school, Harrow, by introducing many of the practices, including the regular publication of school magazine. He established the house system at Harrison College. It was emulated at Combermere School and at Law School. And you know that Law School has the name of Laborde, Bill Entich, School, now Wedderburn. Gooding, H.B. Gooding, was an extremely efficient headmaster. And what else? Washington. Laborde, Entich, Gooding, Wedderburn, and Codrington is the last one, right? Wedderburn, right. Harrison College has Dighton, Dalton, Armstrong, Cullimore, 4 exceedingly competent and visionary headmasters who all subscribe to the notion of muscular Christianity and who established not only the cricket, but the cadet company, #1 cadet company, Harrison College. And we find that in all the schools, especially Harrison College and Lodge, you look at the magazines, the Harrisonian, from 1903 right through to 1981, there's a correlation. The excellent schoolboy cricketers are also excellent cadets in many cases. So to the Lord School, right? Where Oscar Wendell Jordan, was cadet under officer and captain of the school cricket team. So there is that correlation, these headmasters thought, between muscularity and excellence in either mental or sporting activities, right? Under him, under Dighton, the school became the most important cricket nurseries in the entire world. During his 33 years at the school, literally hundreds of cricketers received their grounding in the game. He subscribed, yes, to muscular Christianity, and he established cricket as the main form of recreation at Harrison College. Everything else was subordinate. Scouts was for sissies, right? And I must tell you that when persons like myself reached law school, we thought that the non-muscular, non-hirsute, non-masculine young men are those who went into the Scouts or did nothing. If you were, if you had a structure like, not like mine, but like other persons, you played cricket. And in some cases, you remained at the school because you played cricket. Right. Harrison College and law school entered into serious competition between themselves. Competition in cadets, numbers 1 and 2 company, respectively. Shooting, the Martinez Cup. Football, the Dalton Cup. And in cricket, one sees regularly over the period of the 1900s, Harrison College versus Law School. And I'm going to talk about the Games Masters. I mentioned some of them. Games Masters were crucial, critical to these particular schools. For Harrison College, Summers Cox and Gussie Cox played in the early period for the school, and then you had a dearth of good coaches in the 1930s. Harrison College therefore went down to law school, but in the 1940s, Dennis Williams and his brother, A. Williams, Tank, these persons led Harrison College in many games, and Harrison College had able cricketers and footballers, and Val McCormick as a coach. And then in the 1950s, Sam Headley coached the Harrison College boys. And having started this point, which I think is a digression, let me continue it. The schools could not have continued as nurseries without the aid and assistance and the initiative and the inspiration of these coaches. At Combermere School, there's a gentleman called Ronnie Hughes who attended law school, taught at Combermere School for so many years, and he coached Wes Hall and Royal Banker, Elliot Williams, Wilfred Wood, Peter Lashley, that great Combermere team of the 1950s. At Harrison College, McCormick, until he came transferred to Lodge, was your leading coach. At Combermere School, we said Ronnie Hughes and Major Newt, right? So the schools benefited from excellent coaches, excellent teachers. And some people think that Jeff Brooms is the ultimate in the scholar or teacher who coaches and plays for the school team. Jeff Brooms, one of the last persons to play for the school team, combined schools, is the last in a long list of outstanding scholars who were teachers at the schools and who played for the school. So you see in the school team, law school playing, and you see, let's take the 1950s, right? You see D.A. Simmons opening with Matt D. Simmons, yes, Kerry Simmons, his father, Gerard, and then coming after him, Mr. P.D. Frost, Mr. E.W. Glasgow, all righty? Earlier it will be Mr. Elliot Walcott, Mr. A.R.V. Newsom. Later in Harrison College, Mr. A.G. Williams, Tank, who later became headmaster, right? And Mr. V.T. McCormick playing for the schools, right? for Combermere, Mr. Ronnie Hughes, Mr. Graffy Pilgrim playing for the school. Words cannot control, command, or sum up the immense value of these teachers to schoolboy cricket. Because we can talk about the schoolboys and how they excelled. We can talk about the flashing blade of a Colin Blades, no pun intended, or Tony King, the whirlwind activity of Wilfred Farmer or Stephen Farmer, the dour defensiveness of Jeffrey Greenidge at Harrison College, the brilliance of a Robin Bino. They were coached. These boys were coached. They just did not depend on the essential raw activity, energy. There's a picture at Law School, 1955, and Mr. Everton Weeks, who went to St. Leonard's School and was not part of the big league. He had established himself as one of the three W's, one of the great West Indies cricketers, and he's there showing the essence of cricket to a number of admiring boys. Cave, A.C. Mears, W.B. Hadley, P.D. Frost, O.W. Jordan, etc., etc. And down to my time, Mr. Weeks was a coach at Law School, right? So the Roddy Estricks, people think that you now got coaching in these schools with the access or the intrusion, well, not intrusion, but the inclusion of Roddy Estrick at Combermere School, and therefore Craig Brathwaite and the latest generation of persons that grouping was blessed. You think of Cullimore at Alexandria, and you think of Philo Wallace and Sherwin Campbell at Ellerslie, and you think that they just blossomed. But Jeff Brooms was instrumental in your Cullimore, and Irvin Harris, the late lamented Irvin Harris, was essential to the development of Sherwin Campbell and Philo Wallace at Ellerslie School, right? So to get back to the point about the schools, Combermere School, always a bridesmaid in that era, and Combermere School does not flourish as a schoolboy nursery until, indeed, the time of J.E.D. Seeley, the late 1930s, and following him, Frank Mortimer McGline, Worrell. This school, which attracted mostly working class boys, and for the simple reason, fees were $8 per term. Those at Harrison College were $24 per term. Law School, $28.50 per term. How I pay that, I don't know. Right. Right? Combermere is a miracle in schoolboy training, teaching, a miracle in persistence and existence, starting from the Boys Central School, a no-name entry, coming into the 20th century as third in line, the third wheel on a bicycle behind Harrison College and the Law School. Cadet Company number 3, not involved in cricket, serious cricket until the 1920s, and yet producing a conveyor-like efficiency, a number of cricketers, Derek Seeley, Worrell, Frank King was a groundsman at that school and played for the school at the insistence of Major Newt. And then Peter Lashley, who played for the West Indies. Royal Branker, who nearly made West Indies cricket. Frank King, Francis Scott, one of the most beautiful batsmen I've ever seen. Victor Callender, Lionel Williams, Wilfred Wood, Erskine Simmons, the politician. There's a year in which Combermere won the cup, right, of that team. As I said, Ronnie Hughes played a significant part and role in development of that team. Preeminent among the schoolboys at Combermere, however, in the 1950s, not just Derek Seeley. Derek Seeley, yes, was good. He was great. Batsman, bowler, routed West Trinidad one year, taking 5 wickets for 15 runs. Right. Worrell, who has been described as a cricketing Bolshevik, played innings of 300 runs, and shared in mammoth partnerships with John Douglas Claude Goddard before he left to go off to Jamaica. Right. But the best story from Combermere is that of Wesley Winfield Hall. Wesley Winfield Hall played second division for cricket, second division cricket for Combermere. And an insightful person like Ronnie Hughes saw Wes Hall. And Wes, in one of his books, says that, Hughes cared for them like a father. White man, Combermere school by that time is almost entirely black. And he would invite them to his home, spend time there reading, writing, talking cricket and everything. He had a small pitch prepared on his lawn so the boys could practice and sharpen their skill during the off season. His wife would prepare simple meals like rice and corned beef, which at that time was more than a simple meal for these working class boys, right? Hughes was just a teacher, remember, and his salary would not have been more than modest. Yet he fed these boys, Combermere boys, and made sure they were good and healthy as though they were all his children. Wes Hall started out life as a wicket keeper. And then one day, Mr. Hughes came up and told all the boys that they should practice more than one skill within the cricket team. And he told Wes, you can't just be a batsman and a wicket keeper. Wes said, I want to be like Godfrey Evans. He said, no, man, you should also be like Fred Truman. Fred Truman was the whirlwind fast bowler for England at the time. Truman and Tyson, Lindwall, reaching speeds of 90 miles an hour. Wes was startled. He had been asked to keep wicket, and now they were asking him to bowl fast. He tried it, and the rest is history. He became a West Indies cricket bowler within 2 years, and all because of the insistence of Ronnie Hughes. So cricketers, the coaches have been essential, extremely essential. Getting back to Harrison College, one cannot leave the story without looking at the Harrison College's era. We spoke about law school being dominant the first 30 years of the century. But from the 1940s, Harrison College takes over from law school. The two Walcotts, Keith and Clyde, dominant in Keith an all-rounder. Clyde, yes, he bowled medium pace, he kept wicket, but even then, reaching this school team at age 12, he was an excellent batsman in the style of Walter Hammond. Walter Hammond had shoulders like mine, right, and drove the ball with massive power. Walcott emulated him. Came into the West Indies team along with Everton, who only went to St. Leonard's School and therefore did not have an avenue into Barbados cricket, except that he joined the army and played for St. Anne's and caught the eye of the selectors. Right? Warren Weeks and Walcott played for the West Indies in 1948, went to England 1950, and the rest was history. They played until 1960 with Frank becoming the first black person to captain the West Indies in a tour outside. Right? Remember, Worrell was a schoolboy cricketer. All of them are schoolboy cricketers. Right? In Harrison College, you not only had the Binos and the Tony Kings, but you had David Holford. David Holford, and after him, Anthony, no, not Yearwood, off spin bowler, Howard, Tony Howard. Right, spin twins for Spartan. Thank you very much. Howard tried to emulate David Holford. Holford was an excellent leg break and googly bowler. People thought that he should have captained the West Indies after his cousin Garfield Sobers, but Clive Lloyd picked him. And there, not for the first time, you find political intrusion in the affairs of West Indies cricket, right? These persons dominated cricket at Harrison College in the 1950s, and as we said, Michael Robin Bino played for the West Indies at age 17 and went to India, where he failed against Spain, but he still was an excellent batsman when I saw him in the 60s. And that Jeffrey Greenidge, by the late 1960s, was playing for the West Indies. Remember, before Gordon Greenidge, there was Jeffrey Greenidge. That school, Harrison College, produced a series of schoolboy cricketers and members of the same family. The Williamses, James Williams, A.G. Williams, Denise Williams, Robert Williams. 2 of them won Barbados Scholarship. All four played for Harrison College in sports. The A.G. and James captaining the Harrison College team. A.G., fantastic fast bowler. Right. You found Martindale playing for football and cricket, son of Manny Martindale playing for Harrison College. Right. You found also the bulwarks of empire, right? The Kings, Tony King, Michael King, others. You found Sherwin Chase, Victor Springer, and Peter Roberts. Few people who are at university believe that the languid person, Peter Roberts, Professor Roberts, who walks one today and one tomorrow, that he was an actual fast bowler. You cannot believe it, right? But those people played for Harrison College in the 50s. And the schools kept their individual situations until we come to the 1970s, when the Barbados Cricket Association yielded to the complaints of all the other schools that these 3 schools had an unfair advantage. And therefore, you had a number of changes. You had combined schools, Barbados Youth 1, Barbados Youth 2. What do we have now? Back to combined schools. But it encouraged and allowed other boys from other schools to come in. Not least of all, Keith R. Boyce. Keith Boyce from Cornish Parry. Boyce is a phenomenon. Those of you like myself who were privileged to see him as a schoolboy. He was Victor Lou Durham twice at Cornish Parry School, representing the school in the 100 meters, 200, 400, 800. He played football. I remember him as a goalkeeper. He played table tennis, basketball. He went on. He could not play first division cricket in Barbados. Imagine that. Until he played for Empire. Then he went on in England to represent Essex, reaping about 8,000 runs, first-class runs, 4 centuries, 800-odd wickets, 200-odd catches. In 1973, he was declared one of the fastest bowlers in the world and one of the best fielders. Those of us who would have seen him there can vouch for that. He played a few matches at Test cricket, scored only 657 runs, 60 wickets, 5 catches. But such was his influence on cricket in the North. There's a playing field named after him at the bottom of Diamond Corner, right? Keith Boyce Pavilion and Field. And he is on the products of J.S. Yearwood. I spoke of the schoolmasters who involved themselves in the sport to coach young men. Yearwood and Ernest Rochford at Cornish Parry established themselves in the same way that Val McCormick, Sam Headley, Earl Glasgow, Patrick Frost, L.A. Walcott, A.R.V. Newsom at Harson's and Law School earlier. At other schools, Ellerslie, as I said, Irvin Harris, Coach Sherwin Campbell and Philo Wallace. And we found that from the 1970s onward, when there's a broadening of the base from which the schoolboy cricketers are chosen, that there's a considerable efflorescence of schoolboy cricketers from all the schools. The Alley School had only produced Conrad Hunt up to the 1950s. So Conrad, he became, now it began to produce other schoolboy cricketers. Foundation had never been part of the mix. Now it produces Joel Garner, right, in the 70s. And I remember Joel Garner's debut here against Pakistan. Big Bird, he was called. Now he's a ranking person within the West Indies cricketing administration construct, right? Other schools, Alexandra, 1980-84, Alexandra becomes co-ed. Jeff Brooms, well, for all his notoriety elsewhere, will go down in history as one of the persons who helped Alexandra's boys, especially Cullimore, right, to become excellent cricketers representing the West Indies. At one stage, we remember all the fast bowlers for the West Indies were from Barbados: Cullimore, Pedro, Fidel, and there was one other. Huh? Roach, right? At Princess Margaret, right? Wayne Daniel emerged. Wayne Daniel could not play schoolboy cricket in Barbados, not at first division level, but he played for Barbados and the West Indies. But we must not go without mentioning Ronald Tree. Ronald Tree, equerry to the Queen's Prime Minister, Lord Avon, came to Barbados in the 1940s at the conclusion of the Second World War, and like most war-weary Englishmen, settled in St. James. Marshy, wait, what happened there? They settled in St. James because the geographical climate was favorable to their persons and personalities. I don't know why you people are sniggering. That is most unconscionable of you people. Ronald Tree, to his great merit, not only did he establish himself as at Heron Bay and invite people, not only did he help purchase 120 acres of land starting from Sandy Lane down to Miramar for £480, and it's now worth $8 billion. Not only did he do that, he established the Maple Club. He gave land at Trent's, right? He supported St. James Primary and Secondary, right? Supported the Maple Club, which produced Wycliffe Phillips and all the others who came from that, who did not play schoolboy cricket to any great extent, but went off to England and made their names. Morris Greenwich will sing forever the praises of Ronald Tree, right? So throughout Barbados, at the time of independence, when we come to independence, the schools, the three schools are dominant. Yes, they have established themselves as nurseries of cricket. They have no peer. And for that, up to that time, that very select elitists, we must definitely acknowledge it was elitist. It was elitist. You could only play cricket within the big league, the BCA, and face Charlie Griffith and Wes Hall and George Rock and all the other great persons, Johnny Burke, Whitney Greenwich, Tony White, etc. Arthur Bethel, you could only play against them if you went to Harrison College, Combermere, and the law school. And it was with good reason. School equipment at that time was still a matter of your paying for it. School books, school fees, and then cricket gear. I remember Combermere boys coming up to lodge, and they were wearing short pants. Remember Ishmael Roy wearing short pants, you know. Combermere boys were not necessarily the best off, the most well-off school boys, right? Sneakers, etc., completed their gear, right? The boys from the BCL, boys from the other school could not make the grade. Ronald Tree and other benefactors helped them. Speaking of benefactors, and I slipped out the BCL, The Barbados Cricket League, founded in 1936 by Mitchison Hewitt, J. Mitchison Hewitt, Mitchie, a Combermere schoolboy, and my own father-in-law, Frank Ezra Sidney, otherwise known as Tony Hines, right, who became secretary for 15 years, then vice president for another 15, and president for 18. They achieved a revolution. They transformed village boys into village cricketers, into outstanding cricketers. They helped people like Ormond Graham become the first village cricketer at BCL in the Barbados Cricket League, the Thursday afternoon league. First person to play for Empire. They produced people like Seymour Nurse, Sir Charlie Griffith, Everton Weeks, the great Sir Garfield Sobers, and the list goes on. Oh, Tony Phillips, why could I mention my father and those Phillips? Tony Hines and Mitchie Hewitt, or the other way around. Mitchie was president, Tony secretary. They did yeoman duty, going around the island searching for scouting talent, identifying people like Conrad Hunt, right, down at the Allen School, down in Shirley Village, right. Incidentally, you know the field down there is named after him. Identifying such persons, bringing Pampy Spooner, one of the fastest bowlers ever, bringing the reefers from St. George, right, identifying young people even when they were in their teens. George, Susan Brathwaite, all of these were identified, picked, plucked from obscurity by Mitchie and Tony Hines. They were at primary schools, all-age schools. Some of them had several standard education. They went no further. Some went to the so-called secondary schools of West St. Joseph, Richmond or St. Leonard's, Princess Margaret, right? West St. Joseph, Princess Margaret, Richmond, St. Leonard's, right? They could not play cricket, as we said earlier. They could not play cricket in the big leagues, but through the instrumentality of the Barbados Cricket League and through the work of persons like Owen Nobby Estwick, who succeeded my father-in-law, Tony Hines, these persons made the grade in Barbados cricket, right? So we have, coming on to the end, I'm looking at ending and talking about the fact that, to repeat, the era of law school is 1900 and 1930. In the 1930s, you have Harrison College coming to the fore, and I forgot to mention that some of our prime ministers played cricket. Premiers, Grantley Adams played for cricket for Harrison College. W.S. Scott, later Sir Winston Scott, played cricket and football. Mr. Errol Barrow got his name Dipper from his idiosyncratic way of dipping with the bat. That is from F.E. Cozier and the others. So keep Dipper Skipper is something else. But apparently he was not very graceful in his moments with the bat. So he dipped, so they called him Dipper, right? 1940s, yes, Harrison College Law School, Combermere. You get the Yearwoods, the Ronnie Hugheses, the L.A. Walcotts, the Sam Headleys, the McCormies. 1950s, Corridge Parry comes into being. Allen School also produces Conrad Hunt. West Hall is produced by Combermere, etc. You get in the 1950s, that's the golden era, I think, of 1940s and 50s, golden era of cricket. You will never again have such stellar persons in the schools as the two Walcotts at Harrison College, Conrad, Clyde, and Keith. You'd never have, again, a school like Harrison College played in third in the BCA competition, right? Or Combermere winning the competition, right? Law school coming third 1 year. Then you have the Ronald Tree program coming on stream in the 1960s, under 19 cricket, right? So we have seen, as I said, an efflorescence of cricket in Barbados, and the cricket in this island is not a tale told by an idiot full of song and fury, right? It is a tale of excellence. It's a tale of muscular Christianity. It's a tale of persons having an avenue, even if they didn't know it then, of reaching the stars, climbing out of the drudgery of a plantation, village, and tenantry, and having an option to cutting sugarcane till it burned their hands. Although, I remember my own mother saying, what you want to play cricket for? You can't get a job playing cricket. Little did she know that you had under-19 tournaments. You had Garfield Sober's International School Tournament. You could play in the BCL versus BCA match. You could make the grade for Barbados. You could reach the West Indies. Right? You could conquer the world, as West Indies did, as David Rudder says, for 14 long years. Right? And as we wrap up, we see that today there are so many competitions for schoolboys and, dare I say it, schoolgirls. You have BET under 15 competition, Sir Garfield Sober's International School Tournament. You have Foreign General Insurance knockout for schoolboys. Schools now compete under 13, Herman Griffith. Herman, a Combermere schoolboy, he founded Combermere. He founded Empire Club along with B.I. Gilts and S.O. Giddens, the father of Stanton Giddens. All right. So you have a plethora of schoolboy cricket activities in this island. You could play schoolboy cricket now from the time you're a toddler. You could play for St. Cyprian's, right? And there's an under-6 competition at St. Cyprian's, I'm told. You could play in the Herman Griffith competition primary school. And my son attended Wesley Hall. Wesley Hall has a proud tradition. Adrian Griffith being the first Wesley Hall boy to play Test cricket for the West Indies, and Obadiah Thompson, first Barbadian to win an individual medal at the Olympics, Sydney, right? The schools have done their part. The schools, starting with the elitist schools, have really been nurseries for Barbadian cricket. Without them, you would not have had Barbadian cricket rise into the pinnacle which it reached up to what, 20 years ago? We have declined. And people say, but that's another lecture. Why have we declined? Girls in the schools. You didn't hear that. Right? Is Marcia here? She didn't hear that, right? Marcia, right? You didn't hear that. No, sorry, I didn't say that, right? But girls are playing cricket alongside the boys, right? So we have a tale which is a tale of not just 3 schools, but excellent persons. The cricket coaches, I give greater credit to them than to the boys with their raw talent, right? Long may they reign in Valhalla, or if there's a cricket heaven, right? I think the McCormies, the Bessie Walcotts, the Bird Newsomes, the Ronnie Hugheses, all of them, the J.S. Yearwoods, right? The Irving Harrises. Without them, we would not have had the great schoolboy cricketers and the great nurseries of Barbadian cricket, right? And we also pay homage and tribute to those parents who sacrificed to give boys food, moral support, and a house, right? And we remember that many parents gave their all for their boys to play cricket. Remember, you're looking in the 1950s, 60s, at a time when you had to outfit yourself totally in cricket. There was no sponsorship then. A.C. Mears, Tony Mears, told me he played cricket for Barbados against the Colts, the Australians, for the Barbados Colts against the Australians, 1955. He walked from Newcastle to Golden Ridge, 4.5 miles all uphill. Caught a bus from Golden Ridge to town, walked down to Kensington, bowled 20 overs. When he left, he walked up to the bus stand, took the bus up to Golden Ridge, and walked back down to Newcastle. That is what schoolboy cricket at its pinnacle meant in those days. So, if you think of popular culture, fire in Babylon, Babylon was there, and these people conquered Babylon. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Right, at this point, we're going to invite the audience for question and answer segment. Please keep your questions short but sweet, and I'm sure Mr. Marshall would be glad to answer any of them. We invite you also to use the microphone that's in the middle of the hall. Not everyone can go at one time, but
There are no questions, so let's
Hey, hold on.
Oh, Lord. One of my former students. It had to be.
Last week we had a very interesting discussion here about the decline of West Indian cricket. And as we discussed it, we talked about the way forward. And there was a suggestion to get back to schools cricket. Mr. Franklin Stevenson had a very interesting theory about what he called the community, that in order to rebuild cricket again, that we need to invest in the community and not so much the school. I listened to you very well tonight. In my little reading, I realized that the schools have been the nurseries of cricket for a very long time. My question to you is, we can't go back to the days that you talked about, but how would you see the school and the schools, both primary and secondary, playing a role in rebuilding the foundation for West Indian cricket? That's my first question. I just want to hear some more.
Yeah.
Before that, the second
That's
one,
quite all right.
quickly. I found it very interesting when you began the lecture about George Chalner.
Yes.
I've been researching him as well.
Right on.
And I noticed that there was a stand name after him, and
Yes.
during the rebuilding, I haven't seen his name anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, let me start with that first. I think that it is nonsensical and perhaps, I don't know if reverse racism, to leave Challoner out. Challoner, by 1948, he has succeeded H.B.G. Austin as the pillar upon which Barbados cricket was founded. Took the team to England in the 30s and was our preeminent batsman. The Challoner stand is there, and I, for some reason, I don't know. I don't subscribe to that idea of removing icons. I don't know if Patrick Frost has any notion about why it's moved.
I will mention that.
All right, sir. All right, sir, thanks. Now, David, with respect to the other substantive question, what can be done about cricket? Something is being done. I think I mentioned St. Cyprian's. St. Cyprian's has an excellent schoolboy cricket competition there in Britain's Hill, right, for really nursery cricket. As soon as those boys can toddle and go to St. Cyprian age 4, they're inducted into cricket. All right? There are other schools, nursery cricket schools. There's a lot of what you call kiddie cricket in the school. In fact, there's more cricket being played now than there was in my time and before, because cricket in the road was the introduction most people had to cricket. We were playing with make-up bats, what do you call them? Coconut fronds, knitted balls, oranges, grapefruits, breadfruits, etc. Utilized, and no pads. People played on all kinds of surfaces. Thus, West Indies and Barbadian batsmen were excellent in all kinds of weather. People don't realize that nowadays we play cricket when the rain comes, you don't play cricket. When the puddles on the pitch said you don't play. People played in the rain. You must ask Patrick Frost again. We learned how to play cricket that way. But I'm not avoiding the question. It is difficult to wrap your head around the decline of West Indies cricket. I mean, I did not make the point strongly. I probably just mentioned it once, but we ruled the cricket world. Now we're struggling to beat Zimbabwe and Scotland and Afghanistan. I mean, when I hear Afghanistan beat us, I thought that our soldiers went up to Afghanistan and, engaged in a shooting exercise with them. Afghanistan, Kabul, those, certainly we have declined, and definitely we need a resuscitation of cricket. You do not have, again, the cricket masters, and that would be my first point. You would need a cadre of Patrick Frosts. Is it Frosties or Frosts, plural? All right, Jeff Broomses, Roddy Estricks, et cetera. You do have coaches. We have National Sports Council cricket coaches, right? I remember in my time you had the Everton Weekses and the Seymour Nurses, even down to Thelston Payne, etc. But what can be done? It has to do with attitude. And you see a number of boys, as in soccer in Barbados and throughout the Caribbean, reaching an admirable level of competence and interest up to about age 11. And then they become pubescent and adolescent, and cricket is no longer seen as glamorous. Now remember, I think I made the point that in the era about which I taught, the headmasters, your Burtons at Combermere, Burton and Armstrong, your Dighton at Harrison College, your Bill Emptage at Lodge, made cricket practice mandatory, obligatory. 7th period, cricket. Everything else was subordinate and secondary. Who is going to do that today? I don't know if anybody has the temerity, the audacity to do that, to say cricket must be played. Cricket now competes with other sports. And I mean, you look at boys, when I was younger, I was considered tall. I'm 5'11". Washington at 6'2", 6'3", was considered tall in his time. Now you're getting 6'7" and 8 tall fellas. They're not playing cricket. Cricket for them is agricultural labor, sweating in the sun. They prefer to play in air-conditioned comfort, playing basketball and other sports. What is to be done? I don't want to sound defeatist or negative, but it is a question that has me flummoxed, because there is no easy answer. There's absolutely no easy answer when you see that what we have now is the creme de la creme of cricket, West Indies cricket, and they cannot beat Afghanistan or Scotland. It is a fundamental paradigm shift that we have to do. I don't know. I've stumbled to answer it, David, but I don't know. I can't offer anything else. Perhaps, as in most other things, and I'm stating this, definitely the 21st century is the century of women. And we better put our interest or influence and money into women's cricket. At least they've reached the pinnacle in a shorter time than West Indies men did. And if we get more funds and more involvement and more interest and coaching, they will maintain or retain that pinnacle. But you're starting off with negatives. You're head of a school. I don't know if your school has the same profile, if it displaces the same density in cricket circle as it does in academics. It has a strong profile in track and field. The school also in basketball, but cricket Pardon, sir? You want some money? Right, sir. There are no more Ronald trees around, right? And we do need that. And another reason that our cricket flourished, not just the coaching of the superlative men, but our superlative cricketers went off to the English leagues, right? Your Constantine, your Warwick Weeks Walcott played in the Lancashire leagues. C.L.R. James wrote about it in, Beyond the Boundary. That arena is all but close to us now, all righty? And it seems as though all the structures in the world are against the West Indies ever resuming its position at the pinnacle of cricket. But we never say die. You stand and you watch cricketers at Weymouth, you watch them playing against, you watch them playing kiddie cricket, you watch the under-13 at Banks, the old field, and you say, short. You look with interest at an under-13 boy running up from here to the thing and delivering a good medium pace, and you say, let's tag him for next fast bowler. By 15, he's gone from cricket, right? And all the others, right? I mentioned Shamar Brooks, one of the last of the persons from that triumvirate of schools, Lodge, Harrison College, and Conway. He's a lost boy. Craig Brathwaite, coached by his father, I don't know. And Waddy Estwick. Where's the next set of West Indies cricketers to come from, Barbados? We don't know. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, Robin would not know this. In 1966, when we went to England, in the West Indies team, I think there were 7, is it, Patrick? 7 Barbadians. And it was a point, an aphorism, whenever Barbadian cricket is strong, West Indies cricket is strong. So I don't know what else I can say, sir. Patrick, I think I wanted to make a point. Right.
Sorry, before Patrick makes his point, Mr. Frost, before you make your point, maybe I could shed some light, Mr. Brown, it is? Dr. Brown, sorry. Part of my role as Territorial Development Officer, I manage the said kiddie cricket program that you spoke about, and there's another program called the Grassroots Program. Sometimes you wouldn't hear about these programs because they're probably not well highlighted or marketed, but there are a number of components to the kiddie cricket program, like our after-school program. We have coaches going to these primary schools. We have about 60 schools across Barbados that coaches go into and spend an hour with the kids, just teaching them, I wouldn't even say the basics, but letting them to play the game and to enjoy the game, and so that they enjoy it so much that they want to come back next week. And on that, we try to build on that to make sure that there's something there for them, that they want to play for the West Indies, they want to play for the school, etc. We've built a pathway for West Indies cricket, where at the bottom is kiddie cricket, grassroots cricket, which is a community-based project cricket. It's been lacking in the last couple of years because it does not have a sponsor, but it is there. There are about 16 clusters in Barbados, spread out from St. Peter, St. Lucie, St. James, Christchurch, etc. Hopefully you'll be hearing about that program a little more. So we have a pathway that we work on for the players from class, because kiddie cricket starts from like 6, 7, depending on your growth spurt. Grassroots is secondary school, and then we go into under 15, under 17, under 19, and then club cricket right up to, and the pinnacle would be West Indies cricket. So there is work in progress. F is going to work, that's another thing, and we keep asking, what do we have to do to get back there? And like Mr. Marshall himself, we can only try. There's talent out there. There's a humongous amount of talent, but how we harness that talent, how the coaches harness that kind of talent. Mr. Marshall spoke about the coaches. We have to keep re-educating the coaches so that they can train the players in the right way to reach the standard that we're looking at. And that's something that we're working on. We're working on our coaching education. There are a lot of things that we're working on, a lot of positive things. So I just thought I would share that with you, because as I said, that's part of my job also.
Chair, I'll attempt to answer the question of the Challoner stand. I served on the local committee when the World Cup was held here in Barbados, and that was a tremendous difficulty because all the stands were effectively being renovated, and in the case of the 3W stand, it was being demolished. In the case of the Challoner stand, it was being demolished. A single structure was put in the place of where the Challoner stand is and the Pickwick Pavilion as well. And you had the anomaly that the Challoner stand was, in fact, I think, erected by public subscription.
Yes, 1948.
Rather than by any governmental taxpayers' money. What was being done at Kensington was entirely funded by the government of Barbados. And the committee felt that in spite of any emotional attachment to George Challoner, it was only fitting, excuse me, that the 3Ws should have pride of place. Griffith and Haynes, the Griffith and Hall, Sobers, the Haynes and Greenwich stand and the Mitchie Hewitt stand would have to remain. The one for the press, that was renamed as well. But what was done with George Challoner was a suite was named after him right at the very top of that 3W stand. So he was not forgotten, he was not ignored, but some harsh decisions had to be made at the time, and I cannot recall there being any objection publicly to that decision. If I may just take the liberty of not attempting to answer, I don't like to generalize, but to point to two things. One, Roddy Estick was employed, as far as I can gather, not as a teacher and therefore not as a member of the Public Service of Barbados, but he was employed as an employee of the Board of Management of the Combermere School. If Mr. Brown, Dr. Brown, hopes to get that, then he must get his board to try and find a means whereby they can justify the employment of a person to look after cricket. Now, Roddy has been able to do at Combermere on a full-time basis what Mr. Marshall has said some of us did or attempted to do on a voluntary basis elsewhere previously. In the golden days of teaching, anything that went on after the end of school was voluntary. People remained on until the sun went down. That is not likely to take place now for a multitude of reasons. And even if a teacher did stay on, there's no guarantee that there'll be others staying with him who are the charges. There can be all kinds of social difficulties. Mac Fingal used to do it at Lodge. But you have to have individuals who have that kind of magnetism, be prepared, as far as cricket is concerned, not merely to watch people play, not merely to tell them, but to play with them in a match, bat at the other end, or bowl at the other end, or beyond the field. Trevor didn't mention Fab Hoyes, but there was always another master or two in the Lodge School team, or at Harrison College or Combermere, playing in the second 11 or in the intermediate. Not necessarily justifying their place on skill, but purely because of the value that they added as a senior person who could offer encouragement and support, and if truth be told, some financial assistance and perhaps a lift home after the match was over. But until we return to that situation of voluntary time, playing with students, whether it is football or tennis or cricket, we will not be anywhere near where we were or have the potential to be where we were previously. And if you research it, you will find that Lodge, Harrison College and Combermere were poor, embarrassingly so. And that is why, and the other schools had improved, and that is why the harsh decision had to be taken to remove those three schools from the competition, Division 1 competition, and find a means whereby all schoolboys in Barbados had a chance to play. One hopes that, without being gender bias, that those who look after the female side of games, that too can be created and emulated so that the girls in the Caribbean and the girls, as far as we're concerned in Barbados, have an opportunity to shine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just let me mention, thank you for that, Patrick. Volunteerism, as you said, played an extremely strong part. So I'm sorry I didn't mention Fab, yes, but Sir Alexander Hoyas, rather. But at every school, there were some. Ernest Rochford, with his 400 pounds, plays for Corey's Perry, right? Second 11. Other persons played at Harrison College. I can't bring to mind any yet, but they played, and their role was as exemplar, a person enforcing discipline. Remember, in those days, you could get expelled from the school for smoking cigarettes or the smell of alcohol on your breath, right? So they had a salutary role in the teams. Remember, cricket was the high-profile sport in every school. The reputation of the school sometimes depended more on cricket than scholastic excellence. Your cricketing achievements went abroad, especially in the golden days when the West Indies ruled the cricket world. So, yes, I'm thankful for that note about Fab. Who else played for these schools? Do you remember? E.W. Marshall played for Harrison College, yes. I think Dighton Maynard. Dighton and Livy Goring. Maynard played for Colmere. Yeah, played cricket, yeah. He played cricket. I remember seeing him in whites in second 11 cricket. All righty? Yeah. Incidentally, Robin here went to attended Combermere, and played football for Barbados and cricket for Barbados.
All right, Trevor, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very, very much. Very detailed, very Trevor-esque. I don't know how much is written because I could just see stuff coming from wherever. Trevor is also my former teacher at BCC.
Not to mention David.
And you mentioned David earlier, yeah, and Miss Henderson. Well, he was here. He has quite a network of students, and that delivery, I can bet you if we were to show his paper, half of that wasn't written down. So thank you very much, Trevor. The calling of names, that's a Trevor Marshall lecture we just had.
Dear.
I just wanted to say a couple of things. One, I remember reading George Lamin reflecting on street culture and saying that cricket was the best example of street culture for the Barbados and the West Indies team, because he said once the boys could see the ball between the rocks, the sticks, the gravel, anything that coming up, you could find the ball, and the boys in those days mastered that because you had to keep playing and not get injured, or your mother would give you licks.
Right.
I also want to share with you a reflection of a British professor named Professor Ingalls. When I met him at University of Warwick, he had just published his 21st book, and he went on to publish many more. But he said to me, Marcia, you're from Barbados. I want to come to Barbados. All I want to do is to go to Queen's Park, sit down on a Saturday afternoon and watch cricket. That was it. He says, you don't understand the enormity, the impact of Barbadian cricket on cricket culture.
Precisely.
And that was all he wanted to do. 21st book and going. I have a note here about the question of cricket and the stranglehold of colonialism. I know scholars like Professor Beckles, etc., have dealt with it, but part of the identity of cricket and the culture of cricket is following through that civilizing mission to which you referred, the muscular Christianity. And I am looking at that, just trying to make sense of it, because I don't think we've actually really delved into, as that has unraveled with independence and the ideology has changed with independence, and there are different opportunities. That question of colonialism picking up from your muscular Christianity, what do you think?
Thank you. All right, thanks so much. First of all, going to Queen's Park, I think that there is nothing more iconic in Barbados than watching cricket at Queen's Park. And I saw my first match at Queen's Park about 1957. I was a little boy. Wes Hall from one end, Tony Mears from the other, and George Rock. And the two batsmen were Patrick Frost and Oscar Jordan. I think they hit 50 runs off Wes Hall and Tony Mears. Is that true, Patrick? In 6 overs?
I will not interrupt your imagination. I'm grateful that you include me in that type of
Yeah, but I did see these. Thank you. You hit who? Wes Hall? Right, but you know, that's one of the reasons I wanted to go to law school, seeing these law schools. Well, Oscar was my neighbor, just 300, 200 meters down the road, right? Seeing it. Yes, the substantive point is, what was the ideology of cricket among our people? After the first effusion of this muscular Christianity, yes, it is a very strong colonial construct, right? The umpire, Marcy, is the British Queen. The umpire has total, absolute authority. The umpire is in whites. He is inscrutable. The umpire's decision is final. That's the first thing you hear. He gives you out by pushing his finger up in the air, etc. Those dreaded. Not many people wanted to be umpires. Umpires were extremely unpopular, and they were seen as remnants of the colonial era. I remember, Patrick can help me again, there was a Chinese umpire, Sang Hu, Douglas Sang Hu, who was the man everyone loved to hate because he was a member of the immigrant community, Jamaican immigrant community. He never played cricket to any level, but there he was in the position of an umpire, and he always gave decisions against the West Indies, right? So the umpire, when you see it, and this Neville Duncan drew this for me, the umpire is the Queen, the Commonwealth, all right, untouchable, inaccessible, unlike in football where you can harass and harangue the referee. You know you cannot touch the umpire, right? And then we wore whites. We wore whites. I mean, no other color but white. Why? The color of pristinity or pristineness, the color of the angels, the color of, supremacy. Your whites, your flannels, all righty? And the red ball, right, what? I can't remember what the symbolism of the red ball, but certainly everything was done in the name of England. People in Barbados up to the 1960s stoutly supported non-West Indian cricket teams. They supported Australia, New Zealand, England. Call it racism, call it ethnocentrism, call it what. They did not support the West Indies. We were rough, crude boys playing at being international cricketers, and the real cricketers were, when I was growing up, Cowdrey and Peter May from the English Charterhouse, then Oxford and Cambridge, Harrow, Eton, etc. We tried to emulate these cricketers, Alan Moss, Brian Statham, Dennis Compton. You tried to emulate Ted Dexter, all of these cricketers. They were your icons, not the Caribbean players, right? Colonialism existed quite definitely in our cricket structure. One of my favorite bête noirs is King Dale, and I did not include him in this disquisition because I consider him the worst Barbadian I've ever met. The worst Barbadian, I mean, who As I told you, people call him a lovable eccentric. But this man, I always remember him. I don't know if I'm digressing, but I'm trying to put some structure in it. This is what cricket meant to you. You had the King Dales, you had Talalala, you had fellows who went to Queen's Park and shouted for Wanderers, for Pickwick, for Carlton, for Leeward, right, against the black fellas. The colonialism was there. The ethnocentrism was there among black people. King Dial, I always remember going to Kensington, 1965, to see the Australians here on the normal Simpson. And I'm walking down Fontebelle, and I see this angular, tall, very dark man, and he's haranguing people and calling, black cattle. And he did not even speak. He spat out the words, black cattle, black cattle. Too black to got any sense. In my brashness as a large boy, I'm wearing my beautiful blazer, law school tie, gray pants, and looking the inch of a British schoolboy in the tropics. I'm saying, but excuse me, sir, but what, you're black too, why are you cursing people and calling them and using the word black? And remember, this is the era of Martin Luther King, and Malcolm X, and Nina Simone, to be young, gifted, and black, and Stokely Carmichael, and Huey Newton, and the Black Panthers, etc. And here is he, a reversion to the time of the Goodmans. And even before that, I said, why are you cursing people? Why not go on with your business? Stupid little black boy. I just passed my O-levels, I think 7 or 8. How you could call me stupid? I'm in 6th form. You know, I said, but what do you know about me? What do you know about you? I know you're too black to go any sense. And that is how he dealt with people. And there are people in Barbados who are really ready, willing, and able to defend him to the death and saying that, oh, he was just putting on a show. But that was cricket in Barbados. That is beyond their boundary. You had the King Dial, who to all intents and purposes had not left, right, the nigger yard. He had not left the slave, the slave ground, the slave village in wherever he was born, right? Baxter's plantation on the edge of town or wherever. I think Eleanor here can tell you that he lived a life of antagonism against any black achievement. He cursed his neighbors for being black. He did not work. He got entry to Kensington Oval on the strength of cursing black people. Colin Cowdrey and Peter Main prayed for him to go to England to Promenade and Pomposset at Lord's. And we have a picture of him doing that, spreading the gospel of colonial racial self-hatred. Those are the things that you had to deal with in Barbados at cricket. You had to deal with people who objected to blacks becoming prominent in terms of cricket prowess and performance. King Dial was perhaps the most eminent exponent of that anti-black racial venting. And, you know, some people, I think people are ashamed of it now, so, oh, don't mind him, he's gone now, but we were to some extent the island of King Dial. We did not want to see blacks beat England, Mother England. There are very many Barbadians who hated the 1950 triumph with those little pals of mine, Ramadan and Valentine. There are many black Barbadians who hailed the elevation of Dennis Atkinson, a Combermere schoolboy, to succeed Stallmeyer and John Goddard in 1956 and 57, when you had the superlative talents of Frank Worrell and Clyde Walcott and Everton Weeks, the inexperienced Dennis Atkinson. So colonialism and ethnocentrism in Barbados has always accompanied our cricket. An earlier concept of right, classlessness, which was not really classlessness, because I've striven to establish the point that the elite schools were that cricket was an elite game. Cricket was played by scions of planter families in St. John, going to law school, planter families from the islands, attending law school, merchant families in Bridgetown and its surroundings, attending Harrison College. The intrusion, I think I tried to make the point that Combermere was an afterthought. It was included not until 1929. So it is elitist, it is ethnic, ethnocentric. You get people, for example, Herman Griffith, the great Herman Griffith, founded Empire Club along with B.I. Jilts and S.O. Gittins. Why? Herman, the son of a police sergeant, born in Trinidad, preeminent fast bowler, Bull Bradman for North. Later on, Herman Griffith was considered too black and too poor to play for Spartan. His name was put up on 3 occasions, and you know there was a system of the black ball. People put a white ball next to your name, meant acceptance, and you're okay. One person puts up a black ball, and you are doomed. This is to inform you that your application has not been successful. Herman Griffith was blackballed 3 times by Spartan, the club being in Belleville, and had Sir Conrad Reeves, Charles Packer, all those high up and better offs, mulattoes and pass for whites, and extremely wealthy mulattoes. They were the administrative grouping which ruled Spartan, and Spartan was the club of the brown middle class in Barbados. Herman was the color of David Brown, complexion. I remember meeting him on many occasions in Bridgetown Library, right? And he told me, cricket kept this island together, man. Black and white. If we didn't have cricket, we would have eaten each other, right? Herman could not play cricket for Spartan. He founded Empire, 1914. These are the themes which are subliminal, but for you in cultural studies, those are essential themes. Essential themes. Tonight I did not want to go down that route. That's another lecture, and perhaps for cultural studies students, but for a general audience, I just wanted to focus on accentuating the positive, not eliminating the negative, but certainly not paying emphasis on those aspects of Barbadian cricket. Because Barbados has always been a territory in which race was preeminent when it came to cricket. In 1865, Barbados played cricket against Demerara, and no black person was included. Down to the time of Slade Lucas in 1905, no black person could play for Barbados. Then Fitzy Lily Hines, a black man played for Barbados. HBG Austin, noblesse obligée. HBG Austin, the lily white person, included Fitzy Lily in his team, but Spartan excluded Fitzy Lily. Fitzy Lily was included in Spartan team, and members resigned from the club. Too black, too poor, right? Remember, and that is the time too when Combermerians could not get into Spartan club, right? Spartan, Pickwick, Wanderers were the clubs to which Lodge School and Harrison College boys gravitated after they left school. That's another story. I think I dealt with that in an article I wrote in a book, one of Hilary Beckles' books, An Area of Conquest. When I think with race, class, and ethnicity. I think Andy has a copy of the book up there. I deal with that in that particular article. Tonight, I want it to be inclusive. So I don't know if I've answered your question now. Huh? What?
Beyond the boundary.
Beyond the boundary. Right on? Yeah. Right. There being no further questions, wait, somebody else had a question. I think Charles? Yes, sir, do come. Here's another large boy. Yeah, of course, he went to large, played cricket, kept wicket for the... Right, sir?
Well, good evening, first of all.
Yeah.
Some would say we could keep, some say stop some balls.
Yeah.
I also sat at Mr. Patrick Frost's feet
Uh-huh.
as the school cricket master, and to give credence to something that was said about the importance of having that senior person and learning the game, because it wasn't only coaching and the physical aspects of it. There was a lot of learning going on.
So you didn't tell us who your name is? Oh,
Oh, my name is Wayne Holder.
right.
Yes, and I did attend the law school.
And he's a journalist at Nation.
From the late 60s into the 70s. Mr. Frost and we were batting against Cable and Wireless in a partnership. And we were doing very well. We frustrated the Peter Lashleys and Livy Coppins and their crowd playing. And I remember they got frustrated to the point they bring on Eddie Jones to bowl.
Yes?
Eddie Jones, nobody ever heard of Eddie Jones as a bowler. But they bring on Eddie Jones to bowl, and I was batting. And Eddie come and bowl some nice little lollipops. I hit Eddie Jones with 3 4s in the over. And at the end of the over, Mr. Frost called me, says, no, listen, don't do that again. Now what has happened is that we have played out the best of their bowlers, and they have now brought Eddie Jones to try to steal a wicket. But the thing about this,
You must milk him.
that's what he said. He said, listen, if you hit him for too many runs, the captain is going to take him off. And he can't get none of it over. So
Yeah.
we know that Eddie Jones can't get none of it. So my gentlemen, please, let us milk him. That was the first time I heard that term, milking a bowler.
I learned it from him too.
But yes, you did cover. I got here late for reasons, very good reason. So I missed some part of the lecture, but I thoroughly enjoyed, the whole cross section of the lecture. You talk about a number of things that interested me. I mean, you talk about the boys getting taller and taller. I recall that I went to school in an era where the best athletes played cricket.
Yeah.
All the best athletes played cricket. And when you see a guy playing volleyball, it was that he was not accepted. He was not good enough. He was not accepted. Right? So, and then those lesser persons gravitated to other sports. Today, I'm not so sure that is the situation. As you mentioned it yourself, about cricket being hard work, being labor work. Fast bowling, I always refer to fast bowling as labor work.
Of course.
And the boys, when you can go and play volleyball in a nice air-conditioned comfort, on a nice floor and thing at the gymnasium, the Gary Sobers gymnasium and the like. So that is one challenge. We no longer have necessarily the best athletes participating in cricket.
Yes.
There was also you mentioned the BCL and the grassroots. I think we could have also mentioned the importance of softball cricket
Yes.
to the development of a lot of crickers and
Carolyn Best, for
the
example.
Malcolm Marshalls
Marshall,
and the
that's
likes. We can go on and on. But something I would have want to bring up the demise of cricket and its correlation with the demise of sugar. And the sugar industry in Barbados, the cane industry and the plantation, the influence of the plantation and the plantation culture in cricket, whereby, I don't know if you would have touched on it earlier, but even then, in my reading and the lecture, it says, cricket was deliberately introduced into these islands by the British as a tool, as a tool of socializing the blacks and the former, the descendants of the former slaves and the like.
And Indians as well.
Right, so that when we saw sugar lose its prominence, the sugar industry lose its prominence, I've also observed that cricket has somewhat declined likewise. And I always ask myself that question. This is the first time I have ventured to openly talk about it. But I would like to hear your perspective. Before you go to that, though, I still go on and on. Here recently we had the president of the West Indies Cricket Board talking about the influence or non-influence of female, if I may get into that gender, the gender issue. A very controversial statement for which he has not stopped receiving lashes. I would also like to hear your take on that. And finally, how have we managed that? How has it affected cricket, and how have we managed the transformation to co-education? What impact has that had on the quote-unquote development of cricket and the problems which we now encounter?
Well, let me preface my statements by saying
I will have a seat.
one of my former students, one of my very good friends, and a formidable academic, Dr. Boris, is here. I ain't saying nothing about gender when she here, right? As Paul Kings Douglas said, who tell me, said that, she will bring the whole, all the incubus, all the hammer, tongs, spear, trident, etc., of gender studies onto me, right? And starting with male chauvinist pig, I would be called other things increasingly worse, right? But Dwayne, while you were talking, how come Charles Holder, you were at school with him? Charles is 6'4" and never played cricket.
He played a lot of cricket in Greenhill next to the house.
My point exactly. My point exactly. And look, Charles Holder, look at those shoulders. And I always look at these fellas' shoulders and say a good candidate for fast bowling. Charles was in the cadets, right? And that's his main claim to fame, right? He went to school with Barney Lynch and, right. What was your substantive point? Huh? Oh, no, not that. The sugar industry. Now, by way of answering, I'm reminded that in the 1950s, Clyde Walcott went down to Guyana, British Guyana, then until 66 years. And at Port Moran, he worked for Booker's, the sugar producing firm, which owned a number of estates there. And he was, I think, welfare officer, which was an amorphous term. He had to do everything to help the workers there feel good, comfortable, and placated, right? Pax, Booker, Pax Romana, Pax Bucurezura, right? To pacify the Indians and the blacks. Clyde Walcott brought his immense cricketing talent and reputation to bear on his role. He helped produce Rohan Tianai and Alvin Kalichuran, Leonard Bai Chan, to mention a few. And I don't know if he had anything to do with Chandler Paul, but certainly his experience has not been replicated. The only thing I can remember, and here I invoke, again, personal reminiscence of our connection with sugar, is that when, by November, and the canes at Society and Colleton were maturing, that we started the crop about 3 months earlier than it was scheduled. And by the time January and February came, when the fellas started cutting at the edge, then you had an area of darkness in the middle where we had, Charles has great memories, we had sucrose to the max. The connection between the rise and demise of the sugar industry and the rise and demise of cricket is something I haven't checked. I wouldn't say It is minuscule in importance, but certainly I don't know if Patrick has any ideas on that. What we do know is that Barbados was different from all the other Caribbean territories in that our cricket season coincided with the out-of-crop season. June to December, rainy season, storm. Our fellas played on wet wickets. And as I said, that forced them to be very good on-side players because wet wickets, and as Patrick Foster said, Tony Mears coming down, zooming at your left leg. He tended as though he wanted to defibrillate you, right? It's not, if not detesticulate you. So you learn how to fend balls off the leg stump, all right? But other Caribbean territories, in other Caribbean territories, this is their cricket season. When it is dry, when the sugar industry is going on, so it is competing with the sugar industry. In Barbados, our cricket season did not compete with the sugar industry. Growing up in St. John with Colleton, Society, Guinea, Cliff, Kendall, below Todd's, Lemon Arbor, Poole, Wakefield, Clifton Hall, so many plantations around, right? This is the season when at night you saw the lights of the plantation. They worked on a 24-hour basis. You cut sugar cane till it burned your hand. You had no time for cricket. The planters chose well at that time. So I don't know if yours is a protean structure of linking our success to the cricket, to the sugar industry's rise. But certainly in Barbados, the two were like east and west, and near the twain did meet. They met in June, when, as you know, that was the end of the sugar season, crop over, and the hard times. We played cricket in the hard times. And perhaps that's one reason why people were proficient at it, because the only other thing you did during the hard times was, as Austin Clark said, go and populate the village. Right? Right? And, you know, put your women folk in the family way. You either did that or you played cricket. Right? In the other territories now, they're playing football. I mean, you can look on ESPN and see Arnett Gardens and UE in Jamaica playing in their Premier League. It is intercall season in Trinidad and Tobago, in Guyana. Has nothing to do with sugar. In fact, it's what would you say? It is an antipathy to the sugar industry. You're taking big, strong people from sugar and letting them play cricket? Not at all. The Barbadians were always excellent man managers in the sugar industry. Your sugar industry would have no competitors, all right? So I try, wherever possible, to see what you're saying as having evidential support, but I certainly don't. Really, I don't, sir, but I'll get back to that. No, the other points you made, co-education, a vexed subject. About 10 years ago, Combermere School and St. Leonard's could not raise a team in cricket. You remember that, Wayne? And they joined forces, two teams with an excellent cricket record. Combermere, going back to Burton's time, to J.D. Seeley, etc., could not raise a cricket team, right? St. Leonard's with Irving Harris, right? Could not, and Philo Wallace, and could not. I forgot Carolina Best. What? St. Leonard's, right? Not LSD, sorry. St. Leonard's, sorry. And that is what is happening today. A number of our schools cannot raise cricket teams. And Is it because of the presence of the females in the schools? Yes and no. But studies have shown that 120 11-year-olds enter a school, 60 boys and 60 girls. By third form, that 60 male element has winnowed down to 40. Boys are dropping out from third form. Girls proceed to fourth and fifth form. By fifth form, there are 30 boys to the 60. Perhaps a few girls have dropped out through pregnancy or some reason, but not more than 10. 50 girls to 25 boys. And those 25 boys, their attention is spread between basketball, volleyball, track and field, and cricket. That's all I will say. I admire women's cricket. I go back to the time of Iris Walker and Shell Harris's daughter, Angela Harris, right? I've always admired the ladies playing cricket. I am a strong supporter of the West Indies women cricket team, more so than West Indies men. Right? The other night when I saw somebody put 289 runs on them, I refused to watch. Next morning, I said, yeah, the men lose? I said, no, man. They scraped home by one. Not carefully, when you ask about the West Indies, if you say the boys win or the men lose, the boys win, the men lose, right? But it is a vexed question. And I go back to my generalization that this is the era of women. Women are more achievement-oriented, more muscular in their approach to games, and I mean it literally and figuratively. I once played football against a young lady who hit me with her hindquarters, and I said, whoa, gluteus to the max, and she floored me. Right? Women are excellent in these games. And I'm not just looking at their pulchritude or their female form. West Indies women have the attitude towards winning, or at least competing, which our fellows had in the golden era of cricket, right? Because they're underdogs, they're in an area where people didn't even think that they had the proper orientation to cricket, that they couldn't bowl properly or bat. They held it like a cuckoo stick or something. Those were the first kinds of serious comments we had about women and their playing of cricket. But in the schools, as I said, there is now a situation in which you have more girls than boys. Many of the boys are reacting to this situation by being very concerned about how they look. They must always be neat. How they smell. Good? You can't, at law school, single-sex school, you came in after lunch, everybody's sweaty, right? Nobody pays any attention. But you, they're concerned about these things. I don't know the machismo which drives cricketers, because you have to have, Marcia, a certain amount of male testosterone. No, I'm saying because I know you will respond to this, but no, but she is our academic who is, has the gender research under her wing. And there is, I don't know, is it just testosterone that drives men to play cricket or football? But it is the aggro, that aggression, right? We don't see it again. Not in the school ball, not even at Craig Brathwaite. When I look at Craig Brathwaite, I see like Larry Gomes. I see a right-handed Larry Gomes that pushed and prodded it, and etc. I don't see a Desmond Haynes, a Gordon Greenwich that lashed the ball. When they hit the ball, they talk about ferociously, savagely. Those were the adjectives that the white people used to describe them. And that's, the calypso cricket, the exuberance, the joie de vivre, the devil may care, the sheer belief in their ability. I don't see in our boys in the schools nowadays. Is it because they're surrounded by girls? Is it because the girls are achieving academically and they're not? Perhaps, I don't know, but no work has been done on that. One school I've studied is Harrison College. I've looked at them over the past 20 years, looking at who has won scholarship. In fact, longer time than that, over 50 years. And I've seen a decline in the people doing well in scholarships, males, and at the same time doing well in sports. Your scholar sportsmen. The last boy to win a Barbados scholarship in Harrison College, who was playing sport, was a basketballer. I don't you remember him? Sometime probably over 10 years ago. No cricketers at Harrison College get to win Barbados scholarships. In the time of Oscar Jordan, you expected that at Lord School, but we are now seeing a divide between academics and sportsmen in the schools. And the sportsmen are super macho, rough, crude, aggressive, right? A lot of testosterone bubbling. The others are not so inclined. And in order for you to have a strong cricket force, you must have aggressive persons. I've never seen yet a meek and mild fast bowler. Anybody know the meek and mild fast bowler? They glower at you. Think of Charlie Griffith. Ask Patrick Ford. Charlie, you hit him for 4, and he's gone down there calling the Lord's name in vain. And, was the first person I remember using RH. I mean red herring. Right? As an epithet describing a batsman. Right? Who the RH you think he is? My bad. I'm going to lick off the RH head. Red herring, remember. Right? There is that aggression you expect from your fast bowlers. There is that tigerishness you expect from your batsmen. Everton Weeks, the best example. You may have a languid stroke player like Worrell, but you wanted to see Clyde Walcott. Nobody. Clyde Walcott was your right-handed Christopher Henry Gale, except that he hit the ball on the ground more often, right? And that is the type of football cricketer, not to mention the great Gary Sobers, right? He looked as though, he just a snake uncoiled. And he hit you. Remember him hitting Jeff Jones 4 fours, and the last one, 4 consecutive, and the last one, both feet were off the ground. That's more akin to a footballer than a cricketer. These skills, these body contortions, etc., I don't know. You're seeing them in the cricketers today. They nudge balls. Whenever they try to hit the ball, they spoon a catch. Right? I don't see that great amount of skill among our male cricketers. And Wesley Hall used to be the nursery of cricket, right? It no longer is. So I think I've gone on too long and people want to leave, so I cease there. I don't know if I've answered anything. Robert? Sorry, brother here.
Yeah, I just thought that the majority of questions that I had to ask were already mentioned, but just a few. And you touched on something a little earlier with the competing forces against cricket now. That is one of the problems, because we have so many games to watch on television and also to play that the kids nowadays don't worry about cricket. I remember when we were in high school and you get the break, you run out and you touch the pitch, you come back before you had lunch.
Yep.
You don't get that now. Secondly, cricket has become a very, very expensive game, I would say, to some parents.
Agreed.
When I was playing cricket and when I played my first game here in the park,
For whom, by the way?
Spartan.
And Spartan.
You came down with your bat and pad on the bus. Nowadays, the fellas get out, the bus, out of their parents' car with a trunk.
Yeah.
You know, so those are some of the different things. The other thing is the business part of it. As I said, cricket is expensive. But our business people here in Barbados, as against the other cricket playing countries, do not put money into cricket.
Point
They
taken.
benefit by it tremendously because the last West Indies tour of England here, Barbados made $50 million.
Through
I
the
don't think
Barmy
that-
Army.
Through the Barmy Army, the hotels, everybody profited by it. Did anybody put any money back into the West Indies Cricket Board to encourage them again? No. Secondly, the school cricket nowadays, where we had Seymour Nurse and Sir Everton Weeks,
Telston Payne.
Delta May coming and coaching. The teachers of today want extra money to coach the children.
2:30, 3 o'clock, they're gone.
There you go. So these things add up. Now, for our people's our own advancement, we have lived in the heights and the terraces. So when we get home in the evening, there's no group to play cricket with in the road with the rubber line comper.
Right.
You know, to really get the fundamentals of the game.
And in their play parks, they have no cricket
There's no-
pitch.
there you go. It's a soccer field now.
Yep.
Right below me, there's a soccer field. You know, when you lose that competition among your peers in your neighborhood, and coupled with the fact that the Barbados Cricket Association have expanded so much that it has made demise of the BCL, which was community cricket,
True.
which got bragging rights.
Yeah.
So everybody now plays for in the BCA,
Yeah.
and that nursery of the BCL
Yeah.
has disappeared.
The iron law of strength, I suppose.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
one has to remember, now with the Barbados Cricket Association is Center of Excellence, which try to fill that void. You would find that a guy who goes on to play cricket for the West Indies, the Barbados Cricket Association has invested more than $100,000 in him.
In him, yeah.
So where does the BCA get the money from? Especially now that, you know, the subvention from the Barbados government for Kensington Oval is not coming as we would like.
Yeah.
But these are some of the things that one has to think about and try to correct some of these anomalies.
All I can say, sir, is that other speakers will deal with these in the forthcoming lectures, but they're excellent points.
Right. I just want to say thank you all for coming. I'm sure it was very enlightening. For me, it was. And very interesting, Mr. Marshall. Yeah. On that note, I would just like to invite you to the series continues next week. Just as next week Tuesday. And the topic will be the evolution of early club cricket, including BCL, 1840s to 1950s, featuring Professor Pedro Welch. So all are invited. I'm bringing along a friend. On that note, I just want to invite you to a light refreshment at the back. Get home safely, and thanks for coming.